Welcome to RiftGuides, your go-to YouTube channel for all things WildRift. I'm Kirks, and in this video I'll be sharing some of the expert tips when it comes to OP builds and some little tricks to level up your game and dominate the competition. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, I've got you covered with in-depth guides, gameplay analysis and much more. So sit back, grab some popcorn and let's dive into the exciting world of WildRift together. But just before we do this, let's talk about our question of the day. Who is your favorite champion to play and why? Let me know in the comments below. First on this list comes Caitlyn, and Caitlyn is one of those lane dominant picks, even though she just got nerfed recently. The -4 AD don't really hurt her too much, but obviously she doesn't like it. But in all honesty, it doesn't change a damn thing when it comes to oppressiveness. Usually when you think about such nerfs, it's mostly related to so-called threshold nerfs. Like, for example on League PC, giving a spell 5 base damage could influence the way it helps you clear waves. Then if you only need 2 spell casts to clear an entire wave instead of 3, it makes it very powerful. However, in this case, it doesn't really make a difference and it's only for trading, but it doesn't do anything. So let's talk about the build. First, we have Stormrazor, an energized item. Caitlyn is a super high range champion that loves to attack the enemy champions from high range, therefore having an item with attack speed, crit and obviously a slow in build is kinda broken. Next up, we add the item Static Shift to the mix. Now, many of you people believe that Infinity Edge might be better, but it's not real to be fair. The reason is the following. Most of fights in WildRift are decided by sheer burst, and even poke plays a big role. So what if you combine 2 energized items with Stormrazor and Static, and use an auto attack on enemy champion? You will deal a lot of burst damage that will force the enemy to back off, and then it's just about repeating the same process again. You move around, which you do naturally as an AD carry, stack up your Static Shift and Stormrazor again, and then go for another shot, and this will hurt a lot and will decide fights before they even happen. For boots, you want most of the time Gluttonous because you are actually hard locked in terms of sustain. Early on you don't really have much because you can't early go for Bloodthirster. The earliest you can go for Bloodthirster would probably be 3rd, but that's not good enough. As your enchant, most of the time Protobelt or Stasis, after that Infinity Edge, Lot Doms and Bloodthirster. You don't really care if you overcap on crit, it really doesn't matter. For your runes you want Lethal Tempo, Vampirism, Bone Plating and Nimbus Cloak. Next up comes Karma, and here we'll talk about the support Karma, but obviously you can also play Karma in the same way in a solo lane, but you have to remove the Relic Shield. First off, you start with the Relic Shield because it's the best support item in the game. It grants you 100 HP and the ability to last hit minions from higher health pool, plus healing from them. This, in combination with the bone plating later, makes laning incredibly powerful and you could just beat up enemy champions. But don't make the mistake of starting first ability level 1, because if the enemy has bone plating, your entire damage goes into Narnia. Absolutely wasted. Go for an auto attack and then most of the time for an empowered second ability and force the enemy apart and just muscle them into submission. For your first big item you want Luden's Echo for the burst damage, then afterwards Lucidity Boots with a Meteor enchant if your support item is already stacked, and if it isn't already stacked you want to go for Prophet's Pendant. Then, as you complete the support item, you want to go for Lucidity Boots with a Meteor enchant because then you have the reset mechanic. Afterwards you want to go for a Void Staff, a Rabadon's Death Cap and then an Infinity Orb. For your runes, you want Airy, Weakness, a Bone Plating and Hunter Genius. That way you have the best possible setup and the highest damage output you have available. And for all of you who don't really understand the reasoning behind the pen build, you want as much pen as possible for a low price. So Prophet's Pendant and Void Staff are only like a little bit more expensive than Rabadon's, but they penetrate a lot of magic resistance. With that in place, you already penetrate so much magic resistance that with the Meteor enchant, which does maximum HP damage, you'll obliterate the enemy team. And it's so easy to do so. Rabadon's looks like a cool item, but your damage output will be substantially worse against all targets. It's kinda weird, but well, magic penetration is just too broken in the game. And if you're full build and don't need the Relic Shield anymore and can complete a full item, you want to go for Liandry's Torment because it's the best item possible if you have a high AB count. Next up on the list comes Senna. Senna is a champion that is inherently broken and was broken the entire time, but people are just too bad at piloting her. So let me tell you a few secrets. Number 1, your support item of choice is going to be Sickle. Even though Relic Shield is a better laning item, you don't want to last hit minions and especially cannons with Senna because you lose souls. So Sickle makes it a little bit easier. To get souls at least. Another thing is Senna's ability to trade in lane in combination with Kraken Slayer is really beneficial for Sickle. Your most important trading pattern during the lane is Auto Attack, first ability Auto Attack, which procs all Sickle procs, and procs Kraken on the enemy champion, which in the early game, like roughly another Auto Attack for free. It's really powerful. For the first item, you want Black Cleaver for the haste, HP, and overall the powerful stats of the item is just too crazy. The next item, even though you might say it's already too late, but trust me, you will need the mana, is Manamune. It's not necessarily about stacking it up, but you'll do so eventually. It's about the mana you gain from the item, which you'll understand very soon. For your boots, you just basically go any boots you need, but most of the time Gluttonous, and to a Protect enchant. With Protect enchant, your first ability heals for like 600 plus on 5 people. There's like 3000 healing, that's, you know, kind of a little bit of healing. Also was on your ultimate. The next item afterwards brings you closer to the reasoning why you need Manamune. It's Nabori Quick Blades. Nabori Quick Blades and Senna's passive, gaining more and more crit, allows you to permanently crit and reduce cooldowns. So you'll spam your first ability quite often. If you combine this with your last item called Runan's Hurricane, you get 3 seconds of cooldown reduction if you don't crit, by the way, on one auto attack. So if you think about this, you'll auto-attack 3 people in a fight, thanks to Runan's Hurricane, and if all your attacks crit, which they will at this point because you'll have 100% crit, you will decimate them and provide your team with infinite amounts of healing, which is basically a combination of Karma and Soraka in one champion. Once you're done with this, you can exchange the Sickle, for example, for a Bloodthirster, for any armor pen item, maybe even Infinity Edge, it doesn't really matter, it's completely free for your choice. But Bloodthirster sounds really cool because it has crit, and if you overcap crit you get more lifesteal, and you have Runan, so more lifesteal, so you know the deal. For your runes, you want Kraken Slayer, Vampirism. You can also go for Brutal, which is fine, but Vampirism I believe is slightly better because if you're global it's so easy to get stacks on it. I'd rather settle for Vampirism. For your Resolve rune, it's Bone Plating and Mana Flow because you need mana, and also mana converts into AD with a Manamune. Another champion on this list is Soraka. Yes, a lot of people say Soraka is useless, but just by anti-healing and this champion is bad. No, it doesn't work like this. People who say this have no clue how this champion works, and it's just a blatant lie. A good Soraka that is playing well into the right champions, which is like melee oriented because Soraka shines against melee champions, is obnoxious and a menace to reckon with. For your support item, you start with your Relic Shield, yet again for the same reasons. And also just having more healing on yourself allows you to heal your allies more often during the laning phase, which makes you out-sustain enemies and just, well, muscle them in submission, yet again. For your first item, you want Rod of Ages, and the very first item you want to go for is the Catalyst of the Eons. You want the mana and the HP from the item, because you will trade heavily with this champion. After this, you want Lucidity Boots with the Redemption enchant, because Redemption, hitting on 3 people at the same time, will grant you an empowered first ability. After this, I usually go tier because I really need mana, then Staff of Flowing Water, and then Harmonic Echoes, and then completing the Archangel's Staff. If you face like super high damage compositions that will kill you can also default from Rod of Ages into Winter's Approach just to be tankier. For your runes, Airy, Triumph, Bone Plating, and Genius. It's so easy to stack up Genius, and it's so easy to get Triumph rocks around the map, it's really neat. As for your laning, you want to use your first ability to poke out the enemy super early on and trade with them heavily. You have more sustain than they have, so here's that. As for your ally, ideally you play in duo queue and your ally trades away his HP because on level 2, every single time you hit the enemy with your first ability, your second ability's health cost is heavily reduced, which then allows you to heal your ally and transfer, rather also buff him, with your first ability's bonus regen. With that in mind, it heals him for like 150 at level 2 by the way. You just out-sustain anything in lane and just slowly get the enemy killed. If a jungler comes around the corner, you'll just dive them and the game is basically won. The power spikes for Soraka are usually level 7 because you have your second ability completely maxed out, and level 9 because of obviously your second pointer to your ultimate. But the more haste you get, the more powerful your champion becomes. The breakpoints for this are having the ability to cast 2 second abilities within 1 first ability, and then later on casting 3 within 1 first ability. Because if you are able to heal during the duration of the first ability, and you manage to heal 3 times, which later is very much possible, you'll get an empowered first ability again, which makes it easier for you to number 1 deal damage, and number 2 never ever run out of HP and heal your allies for even more. To give our lovely mid laners some love, we'll include a mid lane champion as well. Next time we'll cover other roles, but this time we'll look at Vax. Vax is one of those champions that is going in and wants to do as much damage as possible, and with the current meta in the game, any champion that can reliably convert magic penetration into more damage is absolutely broken. So for Vax you go for Luden's Echo, Prophet's Pendant, Void Staff, Lucidity Boots with Stasis Enchant, Rabadon's Death Cap, Infinity Orb, and Awakened Soul Stealer. With this you'll deal true damage to up to like 55 magic resist, which no squishy will have more than that. And if they have not more magic resist and they have 0 against you, your damage will skyrocket. Because if you compare the idea, like having more AP but dealing damage into resistances, your damage will be percentually reduced. And if there's a percentage reduced to your damage, you obviously deal less damage. It's just how math works. But with this, and if they have no resist, you'll have a fun time. Occasionally into full tanky compositions where you have to play slower, you might substitute the Awakened Soul Stealer for Liandry's Torment and then be happy with that one. But that's rarely the case, because most of the time, since you're an AP champion, you'll one-shot the enemy champions anyways, and all they can do is cry in agony and be like, and there you go. For runes, you want Electrocute, Weakness, Bone Plating, and Hunter Genius. That's it for today's video. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel and come back for more. See you tomorrow.